Hello again, everyone. It's Thursday morning, the 18th of February, and it's good to be together with you again. This week, we're continuing with our theme of one anothering, what the scriptures tell us about how we should be relating to one another, specifically things that we need to do in the context of what we call fellowship, just quite honestly, friendships, relationships with one another. And we've been looking at numbers of issues like loving one another, forgiving one another, serving one another, submitting to one another. And most of those, in fact, all of those attributes can be practiced in the context of the church. When I say the church, I mean the church gathering. But this morning, I want us to look at another concept that we find in Scripture, in 2 Peter, in fact, chapter 4 and verse 9, where Peter encourages us to practice hospitality to one another without grumbling. And you might say, well, how do we practice hospitality in the church context? Well, again, it's our modern meaning of hospitality that often confuses the issue here, because we tend to think in terms of hospitality as being inviting someone home for a meal, for example, or maybe having them come to stay with us and making them feel comfortable in our homes. But the word itself, the word for hospitality, actually breaks down to mean a love for strangers. It means really to make strangers feel at home. And it's something that is mentioned in Romans, in Hebrews, Titus, Timothy, and in Peter as well. So it's not an uncommon theme in Scripture, but it means to make strangers feel at home. And that would, of course, imply at least getting to know one another. There's another word for that, of course, and that's friendliness. Choosing to be friendly in order to make the other person feel comfortable, whether in our homes or whether in our church environment. Now, I know that many will often shudder when someone from the platform suggests that maybe you should turn around and greet one another, and yet surely that's just fundamental to trying to relate to one another in making the other person feel comfortable, making the other person feel at home. And fellowship is something that we have missed over recent months as churches. And I think for many of us, it started to highlight the importance of fellowship, of relating to one another in a church context. So all of this one anothering starts to come into play here. And nothing more so than hospitality, making an effort to make the other person feel comfortable, to make the other person feel at home. And there are some people who have very special and wonderful gifts of hospitality in the modern sense of maybe being able to provide a meal and make people feel very at home in your home, in their homes. But it's much more than just that. It's an ability that we all need to put into practice to make the stranger feel at home in our company, in our church gatherings. Thinking of strangers coming in, and often they'll say that they left and nobody spoke to them. That's often been our experience, quite honestly, Val and myself. Whenever we're on leave, we always plan to visit and worship with other churches, and so often there is just a lack of hospitality, of making us feel comfortable. And we need to change that at United Church. We need to be people who practice hospitality to one another. And this is, for some folk, it's a specific spiritual gift. Practicing hospitality is something that is encouraged in 1 Peter chapter 4 and verse 9. And verse 10 goes on to talk about practicing God's grace in its various forms, whichever gift we have. And the word used there is that word charismata. And those of you who've heard me talk about this before will know the concept of charismata being the so-called charismatic gifts. And hospitality is given to some people as a charismatic gift by which they are able to give very warm and spiritual meaning to relationships with other people. But all of us can be friendly. And this morning, as you take time out, won't you think about the next time that you're liable to be in a group where there are people who you don't know or who don't know you, and to ask the Lord to give you the ability to be hospitable, to be friendly, to make an effort to reach out to them, so that they start to say, I feel at home in this group. That's the goal of hospitality. Oh, that the Lord would make us all hospitable towards one another. We'll chat some more tomorrow.